Alright, I got a lot done since the last video. I'm well along on the insulation. Got some started up top. On those strips there, I cut some 2x4s up to about 1/4 inch and then screwed it up into that stud up there, and that pulls it up so it doesn't hang down so much. What I'm using for the ceiling is non-traditional, and it might interfere with it. You'll see that later. As far as I've been calling it blocking, and I think it should be called deadwood. Up top, what I did is I used siding that I had left over that's already been weighed. So anything that I don't add to the total weight, I'm trying to use. And what I did is I drilled the holes through the 2x4s a little bit bigger than the screws so they wouldn't bind, and then screwed it up into the 5/8 and put liquid nails on top of it. And it makes great deadwood. It's solid as a rock. Got insulation up there. I haven't covered the plumbing yet. I've got to do that final pressure test. I can cover where I don't have connections at. And then I got a lot done in the bathroom. I got the exhaust fan in, and I put it a little bit lower so I could get a good amount of insulation above it so I wouldn't have to hear it so bad up in the bedroom. And then I've got deadwood all around it. It's not pretty, but once it's covered up it'll be fine. I had to extend out this wall by a half a stud, and that stiffened up where I had to cut out for that plumbing. My cat's in here, and I got all that stiffened up real good. And then more deadwood up top here. I got the exhaust fan vented out. I use that metal that you use for it's like 3.5 by 10 that goes above microwaves. I had to buy some anyway, so I just cut off a piece and made a box out of it, and that worked out really well. It won't interfere when I put the siding on. Right here I left that uninsulated. That's where the cord is going to be at for the AC, and I don't like window units where you have a big long cord all coiled up. So I got one of those holes that you use. You see them in office desks where you poke your cords through, and it has a little cap on it. So what I'm going to do is I'll drill a hole and put that cap in it. When I plug it into the outlet, then I'll poke the cap, I mean not the cap, but the cord through the hole, and it'll be in the wall so it won't be such a mess. That's one thing I hate about window units. With if you don't conceal that cord, it looks kind of messy. I got all the insulation in our bedroom done. Today I'm going to work on doing more of the ceiling. I'll probably pressure test it while I'm working on it. But the insulation is going. I haven't used as much insulation as I thought I would. I've used 8 rolls. And I get the rolls where they aren't pre-cut by 8 foot because that wouldn't do me any good. And then I save all the little pieces, and I don't know if you can see it. Above that window I just poked in raw insulation, and I use that anywhere that the where the paper backing wouldn't do you any good, like above that window back there. So far everything's been working out real well. I'm going to attach a number 12 extension cord to my power box in the back, because I have all my boxes twisted off. What I do is I tie everything together in the back and put a pigtail to come out to the outlet, and I capped off the hot wires. And what I'll do is I'll turn on a couple of breakers that I need for outlets, and then I'm going to go ahead and put light bulbs up here where my ceiling fan and that track lighting outlet's at, and then I'll put a switch in where I need them at, and then that way I can plug the extension cord in and then use an outlet or two and be able to turn the lights on in here. Anywhere I need more lighting, then like up here, I'll go ahead and just put a socket like I did on the end of that cord. Then that'll give me lighting, and then I don't have to have a real long extension cord inside. When I nail the luan up, I'll be using a pneumatic nail gun. I got the heater spot framed in. I finally got that in and got that all prepared for it, and then I put in framing. Got some mirrored medicine chests. They're going to go have one here, and I went ahead and framed in the one that's going to be right here, and that'll open up, and they have mirrors on the back side of the door too, so that works out really good. And I started, I got my width set for my steps, and I went ahead and screwed and glued that down. And then same thing on my countertop side. This will be my toe kick, so when I build my cabinet, I don't have to build a cabinet with a built-in toe kick. This will serve as my toe kick, and then I'll just put something decorative on the front. I didn't think I was going to have enough space for my refrigerator to sit flat on the floor, and it turns out all I had to do is shave off about 4 inches off the length of this, and I've got to put something in that corner there. So now my refrigerator will sit on the floor as opposed to raised on top of this. So that worked out really well. And I got my sunroom, it's all insulated. That did real well. And I tell you, on these nail guards, you better buy a lot, because right now I'm at 200 of them, and I still need to buy more. Buy those at Home Depot. They're cheaper than Lowe's. I was surprised how much less they were at Home Depot. I like Lowe's and all, but they're not the cheapest place to buy things. So if you got a Home Depot and Lowe's, I would suggest checking both of them. Also too, on a note on the electrical, these are kind of a composite box. Anything more than a single gang, I would get these composite boxes because they nail in good and then they don't flex. I made the mistake of using these cheap plastic ones, and they just flex too much, so I've got to adjust. I got to put something in the back side here where I can get it where it's not wanting to point down. That's the only thing. I wouldn't use those cheap blue ones unless you just for the single gang. They worked out good for the single gang. And I put one of the composites in the bathroom here, and they're just solid. That's a much better box. They're a little bit more expensive, but when you're building a tiny house, you can afford to upgrade a little bit like that. So and if you look in the back here, you'll see where I've tied everything else in the back, neutrals and hots and grounds, and just left my pigtails ready for my switches. And neutrals were tied in because they just have to pass up, and I left a ground. A lot of people don't ground the light switches. There is a ground on the switches, and I'm going to go ahead and ground them. It just most of the times electricians don't, but I think it's a good idea if you can ground something to prevent something from overheating. I'd rather have it trip the breaker, know I have an issue, as opposed to shorting out or getting hot. Because, you know, being in a little tiny house like this, fire issues, something you have to really consider. That's why I put so many smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in it. Overkill, and that's a good thing. And then up here, since I'm using track lighting, I had to run a 2x4 all the way across here so I could screw the track into it, have something backing. I like using those pancake boxes. They're only a 1/2 inch, and they're metal. If you use a metal box, you have to ground the box. That's not a big deal. I bought a bag of those little pre-made up pigtails. Over here, where the ceiling fan's going to go, what I'll do is the 2 screws that normally would hold the fixture, I'll unscrew that and I'll drill the hole out a little bit bigger, and then I'll take a wood screw when I hang my ceiling fan and go all the way into the 2x4, and then that way I don't have an issue with it wanting to come loose. I may start hanging luan in here tomorrow to kind of get an idea how well it's going to go, and any issues that I might have I can deal with while I've got a great place to stand and deal with anything. I use the paneling glue because it's got a pretty quick grip, so I can get it in place, and I don't want many nails in it. So my cabinet layout is finished now. I've measured my height for the microwave. I did buy a microwave. It's a convection microwave oven, and hold on to your wallet when you go to buy those. They're a good one's extremely expensive, but if you want one that the convection side works good, if you want to pop a turkey in there or anything like that, go ahead and buy a better one. Some of the cheap ones, the convection side's pretty weak, in that it's worth it because then you don't have to have a little convection oven taking up counter space. So we bought that GE, I can't remember the line, it's their a little bit better line. It was a little over $500, but I think it's going to be well worth the money. Alright, well, I'm going to get started on the day and see what I can get done. I'll go ahead and add this to the end of this video. This is a hardwood luan that I got from Lowe's. Home Depot didn't have a luan. It was really thin, and the grain was inconsistent. The good thing about this stuff, the grain is consistent on every sheet, exactly the same. A little bit expensive, but like I said, Lowe's is not the cheapest place to buy things. I can't decide if I want to paint it or do a pickling, a colored pickling, and then seal that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look and see. I plan on using a pine base trim, a knotty pine base trim. I want to have some kind of wood in the tiny house. I don't like a lot of wood. I know a lot of people do. It's just kind of closes it in and makes it feel smaller inside. So I most likely end up painting this, but I'll use pine. I have a lot of trim that I've got to do around the base and the doors. My cabinets are going to be a #1 pine. I'll build those and stain those. We also bought a piece of vinyl. This stuff only comes in 12-foot widths, and I didn't want to do a seam on the bottom where everybody's walking at, so I went ahead and bought a piece 24-foot long, and that leaves me enough left over so in the living room I can put a seam in it. But we're going to have an area rug that'll protect that. Seams, I mean, if you do it right, I guess they wouldn't come up, but I'm not a flooring guy, so I got to do a little bit of research on how to finish off the seam. I'll show you what it looks like. It's a perimeter glue that's extremely thick, so you don't have to worry about the imperfections in your floor because it floats on top. But this is what we went with, and it's got some lighter colors in it, and it looks like wood floor. It's kind of expensive having to buy a 24-foot piece. That's the only drawback, but I like the perimeter glue. They've got tape that holds it down real good, or you can use a glue. I'm going to use a tape, and with perimeter glue, these ambulances, with the perimeter glue vinyl, what the tape is, what you do is you put several pieces underneath anything heavy like the refrigerator to keep it from wanting to move. And then I may even use it for what's left over for the backsplash behind the counter, because in that way this stuff holds up real well and it cleans easy, and it's not really heavy. Because at this point in my tiny house, I'm really trying to save on weight. I'm getting close to the weight that I wanted to get to, so anywhere I can save on weight, I'll do it. Wood flooring's nice, but anything ever leaks or you have an issue, it's going to swell up. This will go from end to end. I'm going to do the pattern method. It'll go end to end. I'll have all the corners glued or taped, and if anything leaks or anything like that, I don't have to worry about it getting into my floor. So that's why I did the 24-foot length as opposed to putting a seam in it. But this stuff looks really nice. I think it's going to turn out good. And it's got some lighter colors in it, so whenever I go with the trim, I'll try to go with a little kind of a brownish light color to match it up. We pretty much have everything bought for the tiny house. The way I do it is when I get some money up, because we're moving out of our house, we're selling a lot of stuff. When I get a bunch of cash up, I go ahead and buy something that's expensive ahead of time, because Luan and insulation and do something like that, that's not very expensive. You can buy that as you go along. But I got the vinyl early because it was expensive. Luan, it's about $13 a sheet. I can buy that when I need it. But I got the microwave. I have all my appliances and sink and heater, all my fixtures, everything that was expensive I bought ahead of time when I had money. Because if you don't have a lot of money laying around at one time, that's pretty much the way to do it. You know, and I've got to buy a little bit more insulation, and it's not real expensive, so I can do that whenever I get paid. But anytime I get a good chunk of change, I always buy something that's expensive. I haven't bought the washer and dryer yet. The stacked units or the laundry center, the one pieces, are just ridiculously expensive. So I think I'm going to go with the front load style, and where I'm putting my washer and dryer, I'm going to build a shelf and have the dryer sitting on the shelf up top, and then put the washer underneath it. So if it ever has to be worked on, then I don't have to worry about pulling both pieces out to have it worked on. So you have to kind of adapt as you go along. That's a big thing about tiny houses. It doesn't always work out exactly, no matter how much planning you do. So you got to be able to deal with something that pops up. Alright, I think that's it for this one. I've talked enough. Alright, I might add another one on this weekend's video. I got all the insulation up top above the bedroom. Did the wood strips, take the weight off of it. Something else I did, I took an old cord, extension cord I had, a number 12. The ends of it were getting pretty bad while I was going to have to replace them, so I cut the end off and wired it into my junction box. And now I can use my sockets and outlets. I should say my light switches and outlets. And I put one there. And as I put my Luan up, I'll just use a wire cap and tie them together and just push them back out of the way. And it's also a good way to kind of test to make sure you haven't done anything dumb with the electrical. And it makes it more convenient now. I can use the cords, plug it into the outlet, and then at night when I get done, I just unplug the extension cord that goes to the box, so I don't have to worry about if anything gets weirded out or anything like that. It burns. I'm going to start putting Luan tomorrow. I'll probably post next weekend for that. And the way I can get away with having those wires, in any of my junction box, I tie my neutral, grounds, and hots together and twist them together real good and use a red wire nut, and then I have a pigtail on it that comes out that I need. There's a hot wire there, I've got it capped. The neutrals are all tied together, and I've got a ground pigtail to ground the light switch, and that way I don't have to worry about the voltage getting on anything. I did that to all the outlets, got them all prepared for that, and I didn't have to do a smoke test. Everything worked real well. When you do the light switches, I don't generally put them in there. You just don't want to touch that hot wire on the side when you're messing with the light switch. It'll bite you a little bit. And something else I haven't shown. I put these heavy-duty anchors right where I tie it to the frame, and then on the sides I ran a strap up the side of where I doubled my 2x4s and went ahead and lagged that in. I put a 6-inch lag bolt to go through the bottom, and then there's a strap outside, and I haven't put the straps on yet. I've got to put the 1x2 on the bottom to pull that plastic up and seal it up. But that way I've got it tied down really well. I've already used a lot of clips, but if you're going to tow it, you might as well go ahead and make sure. And then a lot of places I went ahead and put one of those ones I bent. And I've added some wood here to the plumbing. That hot water side was wanting to poke up, not be at the same level. And then on this ice maker box, those plastic ears are just flimsy as hell, so I went ahead and just cut a 1/4 inch piece of wood on the back, and then used 1/2-inch screws so it wouldn't pierce the siding on the outside. That way it's nice and solid. And then I put that on the bottom because it was wanting to deform the bottom of the box, so I just stuck another piece of wood in there and used some straps that I had left over. Just another one of those anal retentive things I have about wanting everything to be level, even with each other.